her coach and mom, Carolyn Kubas, and her former development coach, Sheryl Ross. Welcome, everybody. Are you ladies ready to go and bring in your A game this morning?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Ready to rock. Yep.
Fantastic. We are going to be speaking with Ella and her coaches today about not only her adaptations to COVID-19 and what she's doing around training, looking at her development through the course of her formidable years, and then as she's starting to mature, also asking her questions and delving into her choices leading into post-secondary education and her goals beyond. So we're very excited. Welcome, ladies. Welcome, Ella. Very excited to have you on Forging Innovation Together. And we're going to roll our intro. Lucas, roll the intro, please.
You good?
And we're back. Well, viewers, again, what an exciting morning. We have Ella Kubas, we have Carolyn Kubas, and we have Sheryl Ross. You want to say hi to viewers, everybody?
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How's it going?
So, Ella, the superstar, you were named 2018 Junior Athlete of the Year by Tri Ontario. You've been top 3 at provincial championships 2 years in a row. You've had quite a few successes at some of the Tri events in North America. And you're currently a freshman at South Dakota. Is that going well for you?
Yes. Yeah.
Are
Besides
you
having classes online and not being on campus, everything's gone smoothly so far.
are you writing exams as well at this time?
Yeah, I have finals starting in 2 weeks, so I have everything online, which is something different, but definitely a challenge.
Missing friends, I bet.
Yeah. It's weird not having teammates and just kind of being in the university community, but hopefully we're back in the fall.
All right. And on the screen, and you can see in the upper right, Carolyn Kubas and Mom. How are you this morning, Carolyn?
Great. How are you? Thanks, John.
That's great. Carolyn, again, is also the head coach of the Tornado Triathlon Club in Milton, a certified swim and community triathlon coach and personal trainer, and of course, mom, and probably the family matriarch, right? Do you have other kids as well, Carolyn?
I do. I have a 16-year-old son, almost 17, almost behind the wheel, and he's into football. That's his main sport at the moment. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And then in our bottom left hand, we have Sheryl. Sheryl being so nervous and apprehensive, as she told me ahead of time. I don't know what you're apprehensive about, Sheryl. Sheryl is the registered kinesiologist and a certified nutritionist. She is the president and CEO of her own business, Sheryl Ross Sports Science, certified swim and triathlon coach at the Tornado Triathlon Club. You've coached some elite long distance triathletes as well as being involved in Ella's and many other athletes' development, and a former competitive swimmer and avid high level age group triathlete. Welcome this morning, Sheryl. Great to have you.
Thank you, John. Good to be here.
Great. Well, I think we're going to get right into it. So, some of these are basic, but I think some viewers, and if we have younger people that tune in later, that watch this when it's recorded, maybe Ella, you could give us an idea of what was your influence getting started in the sport, first coaches, whether it was mom as your coach, how did that go, that kind of thing. Maybe give us some background on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I did my first triathlon when I was 6 years old, and I did it. It was either Kids of Steel or Tri Kids. I don't quite remember the exact series, but my parents signed me up for one. My brother and I were both super athletic, super energetic, and they just signed us up on a Sunday morning. And I raced my first triathlon, and it didn't go well. I completely missed the bike turnaround, went the wrong way, and came close to last. And my parents said I would never do a triathlon again, but somehow I'm still here. So that's kind of how it started. And then over the years, I would do 1 to 2 triathlons a year until I was about 13. I got involved in the Youth Cup series for Ontario. And still at that point, Tornado Triathlon was just getting started up. So I basically was doing training under my mom. She would be like, all right, run 2 laps of the block, or let's go on a bike ride. And I was in swim lessons when I was younger. So it's just kind of a mix of, I'd say, like normal athletics as a kid.
Yeah, getting involved. And Carolyn, what was the, besides keeping the kids active, involved, engaged, what was the impetus for you getting her involved and sort of structured into the triathlon practice? And as well, at what point did you see that maybe missing a bike turnaround was just a little mistake and she might have some abilities and skills down the road?
Well, I think, John, just the fact that even after that 6-year-old, it was such a fun day. But even after that race, she just kept on saying, "Oh, how about that? Is there another triathlon?" Or she was very active in regards to trying lots of sports at a young age. So it wasn't just triathlon. Like, she was still doing soccer. She was taking swimming lessons. She was Highland dancing. She was kind of doing everything. And as she got a little bit older, I just noticed that she just wanted to kind of do more. And we didn't push her to do them. She was really, we would travel and do a couple and do camp outs. We would do cottages, whatever. And then it just kind of clicked where she felt like she just loved doing all 3 sports. And I'll never forget, I had to pull her off a football field one time. She was playing flag football, and I had to get her off that field to get her dressed into her dance competition, to get to a dance competition. And then we got stuck in traffic on the way, and she was changing in the car. And I knew then that it was kind of we had to quit dance. That was not going to happen. But she just wanted to continue to do those 3 sports. She loved to swim, did not do a swim team. And then she just loved to get out and bike and run. So it was kind of a natural thing. There was nothing really structured at all. And then she decided, we found this club that would take her 2 days a week to swim. And she just swam 2 days a week. And she wasn't the strongest swimmer. She was, it was just to do 2 different, to do that practice. And then eventually, when the Tornado Triathlon Club came about, a friend contacted me. It was kind of a natural progression. I thought, oh, this is great. We can practice with our own kids. And that's exactly what the 3 moms at the time did.
Wow, that's great. Mm-hmm. And here you are, Ella, all these years later. What was it like having mom at that point in time, Ella?
I mean, it's weird when you, first of all, it's your mother. You live with her 24/7, and then obviously sometimes we got frustrated with each other. That's evident. I'm not going to do this today. And then it's not like she pushed me to do it, but we just had different views on some things. But she was always there for me for strength and conditioning. That was one thing that we always did together. And as you know, she's really educated in that department as well. Mm-hmm. So she was really good at showing me things if I was sore, or helping me with little weaknesses I had. So that was one thing we always had pretty structured together.
Oh, great. It's nice to hear from both of you how much the sort of organic involvement was created at the early stages, and how much Ella was doing across all kinds of sports. Ironically, I'd like to ask you a quick question. Do you know a judge called Heather Dwinell in Highland dancing?
I don't know the last name. No.
Well, I know that lady very well. She's a very high level Highland dancing judge, and I'm sure she's probably judged you at some of your competitions.
Mm-hmm. That's super cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So at what point then did you kept going, you got involved, got engagement, mom's helping you out, the 3 moms get together, they start Tornado Triathlon Club, and then something else occurred, and all of a sudden Sheryl Ross is involved, and Sheryl, you took on. What was the impetus for that? And Ella, sort of looking at you and Sheryl, what was the deciding factor of making that slight adjustment, and what did you see, and what did you want to start to work on? I'll shoot that to you, Ella.
My computer disappeared.
We'll get you back in no time.
For me, I joined Tornado Triathlon from the start, when my mom created it, just to have training partners and to have an actual program in place, because I was doing all this stuff on my own, but I realized like how much better it is to have partners. So I was running with the boys and swimming as hard as I could, trying my best and everything. And then Sheryl was coaching the youth mostly at that point, and that's where I was at. And I think I was just always wanting more. And throughout kind of when I was 15, she held me back a lot. And I think that was really crucial to my development because, yes, she could have been like, run more, or do more volume. But we really focused on the quality over the quantity and just really nailing the workouts and just working on speed at that point because I was still really young. And so I think kind of our relationship formed obviously through Tornado, but just through club practices, and she started doing training peaks with me. And I think it just kind of evolved over time and then eventually was kind of full on training.
And Sheryl, describe to us your strategy through those developing years, what you started to identify with her, what your philosophy was, and then what specific adaptations you wanted to start to put in place for Ella.
So as the other ladies have mentioned, we started the triathlon club, the three moms, and I just naturally moved into the swim coach position, obviously, and as well as the other two sports, but focusing mainly on the swim program. And obviously Ella was just brought right in as one of the other youth. There was nothing singled out for her program specifically at that point. We were all working as a group, and we would obviously always isolate or we'd bring out the best in certain kids. Some of them could do some things more than the others. And unlike a swim program, for example, that is, I think, more cohesive, everyone in the lane would be doing the same thing. We had such diverse abilities. So somebody like Ella, who would be potentially at the front of the lane or stronger, she wasn't always the strongest person in the pool. There were others that were from swim teams that were faster, and then she would have the luxury of, trying to chase those athletes. But Ella always was pushing herself independently. I didn't have to say you need to do more or you need to go further. She would push herself to the level that she was capable of, and that was one of the things. It's very different, I'd say, from some athletes who kind of get in that group mentality of, okay, this is all the lane has to do, so I'm not going to go any more or any further or any faster. We had very different sort of training points for each person within each lane, which makes the coaching interesting and makes it very exciting, because I just would have pace times in my head and say, okay, you're going to be able to go this many at this speed, and the next person down the line might be doing something completely different. So very unique situation there with the triathlon club that we had. And as we progressed, obviously Ella continued to show her strength in all three disciplines. I remember the first time I had to ride with you, Ella, your mom asked me to take you out on a road ride, and I think I was still faster than you that time. It was like that one and only time. And then it was game over in terms of our speed. But Ella got a better bike. She trained her butt off. She works hard.
And all of a sudden, you start thinking about buying a Vespa.
I don't know.
Yeah, you know what a Vespa? A little motorbike. That's the only way you can keep up with them.
I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I need the Vespa.
Yes.
I need the motorbike.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so. I was still okay keeping up with them, but then it became a lot of specific work that, go out and back at this pace, and we do intervals and whatnot. But certainly all our athletes within the program were more each individualized type of approach. And we had to do it that way because we had such diversity. So then within the program, Ella just continued to show what she was capable of and got pushed further and further, and not necessarily getting pushed. She was capable of more and wanted more. And as Ella said, a lot of our programming had to be kind of reining her in, because she would work extremely hard, over the top effort levels. If anything, I had to bring her back and, say, all right, you know what, we've done enough for today. You don't need any more. And that was just the kind of athlete mentality Ella had. So Each individual athlete within our program had a little bit of a different need in terms of how to approach them as a coach. And that specifically, Ella was super strong in that regard. So it just developed kind of organically, as we've said, over the years. And then when Ella became more of elite junior level, then we had to add on a few different things, add some specific workouts that weren't with the Tornado program, and add some additional support. We talked about nutrition. We talked about we added on the training peaks piece. Different things got added on for Ella as she became into that elite category as a
Right.
junior.
Ella, how does it feel hearing about all these glowing, over the top compliments from your coach about you and your youth? Does that make you feel good?
Well, I mean, like, honestly, I couldn't be here without both of them. So it's kind of a three-way street. Like, all of us have contributed so much into this. And I think that I have to give it back to them, because if they had pushed me at a young age, and yes, I was willing to do more, but looking back, if they had pushed me to run 10Ks when I was 15 or 14, or pushed me to do certain things that, like, I still haven't biked over 100 kilometers on my bike at a time. And at the time, the longest bike ride I do is 30 kilometers. Oh, that's so long. But if they had pushed me at that point, I think I would have probably burnt out and not enjoyed it as much as I do.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting again is that you're certainly implementing a model that is attentive to the needs of all the athletes in your program, especially when you look at the very structured swimming element, which is unique. And I know, Sheryl, with your swimming background, I think more triathlon coaches need to learn how to do that because lane management within the group of athletes and speed, skill, management within the lane becomes very, very important. So it's really great to hear you talk about that, and I hope some of our viewers and subscribers will be attentive to that and maybe even ask you about that. So you kept this development rolling. You started to see this skill. You started to see and mention that Ella, you started to get obviously stronger, growth. Your skills were improving. Your speed was improving, and all of a sudden, you sort of maybe had to make some choices. At what point do you think you recognized you kind of wanted to pursue this as a high performance athlete?
So I obviously went through youth racing at the youth cup, and I went to Ontario Summer Games. And then in 2017, I started swimming a lot more, trying to hit Canada Summer Games. I really wanted to get selected for that event. So I really started working hard, and I made that event, and traveled to Winnipeg with Team Ontario. And that was just like such an amazing 10 days. Like, I still remember it like it's yesterday. And
I know
then
a
the
whole
next,
3 years ago, Ella. It's like, for us old folks, that's really a long time ago.
honestly, it doesn't seem like 3 years. It kind of all blends together. But after that, I started racing international, kind of some races in the US, like Sarasota Junior. It was like the North American Championships. And after that, I got a few more opportunities pushed my way. And that's when it really all started to click that I wanted to pursue it at a high performance level.
That's great. Well, how old were you for Canada Games when you qualified 3 years ago?
I would have been 16.
Okay. So then in the last couple of years, obviously you kept rolling along, kept improving, and then all of a sudden there comes a time when you exit grade 12 and decisions need to be made. Can you give us an idea of what led to your decision to move to the National Training Center in Victoria? Uh, you know, uh, was it a gap year, and or was it something that you knew you wanted to do with respect to going to the University of Victoria? Give us a description of what prompted the decision and how you arrived there.
Yeah, so pretty much after I raced in Sarasota in 2018 in the spring, I got some contacts from Marc Antoine at the National Performance Center, and he was just basically saying, hey, you should come join our program. Like, I knew they had a super strong team out there, really like good group of coaches, strength, swim, and triathlon. And I was planning on taking a year off in the first place. So at the time, I was a homebody and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was like, I just want to stay at home and work and then figure it out. And my mom was like, she turned to me one day and she was like, hey, you don't get chances all the time, so why not take it? Worst case, you freak out and you come home. Like like there's not really too much risk to it. Like, you're taking a year off. It's not like I was in school or anything. So I decided to move to Victoria and started training with Mark and Cody, the swim coach, and Brian, the strength coach. And it was just like such a great environment for high performance sport. And it was just so different from what I had from my development when I was younger. So it was kind of that next step. And I think it was really important for that point in my life because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I hadn't really experienced sport at that level at that point. So I think, yeah, I have no regrets. It was like the best way I could have spent my year off, I think.
Fantastic. It's really nice to hear you say, Ella, that mom approached you with almost that healthy challenge. Can you describe, Carolyn, or expand on how Ella described that, where you looked at it and said, well, yes, it's a risk, but it's worth taking. How did you feel about it? Obviously, you were positive and supportive as a coach and also as a mom, but describe a little more. How did it feel about possibly losing the first one to leave the nest?
Well, I mean, it definitely can be emotional. There was, as Ella said, she was a homebody. She said, you know what, I'm going to go to Guelph, Mac, or Laurier. I'm going to take my year off. I'm going to work. And, she kind of had a plan. This is kind of what she thought, kind of to stay closer to the nest. And Sheryl and I spoke after Marc Antoine contacted her. And, even Coach Sheryl was like, yeah, this is a no brainer, Carolyn. And she goes, I'm not her mom and I'm not, making that financial decision. She said, but really? And I said, I know. I said, I think it's just what, it's so positive. And I thought Ella was a mature kid leaving, but that year in Victoria was phenomenal from her, from a development perspective. Learning to know what her body can take, training smart, with that increased volume, because she really hadn't had that increased volume before. And that was something Coach Sheryl prepped her for kind of over the summer, saying, you know what, you're going to slowly, those hours are going to increase. And I just think it was kind of a growing up phase for Ella. And when she came back, she was just kind of ready to take on the world at that point. So she, all in all, it was positive. So that's why I supported it.
Fantastic. And Sheryl, certainly Carolyn had mentioned that you started to make some adaptations. So what adaptations more specifically did you make leading up to her going to the center? And then what training or program adjustments, Ella, did you have to prepare or deal with once you got to the center? I'd like to start with you, Sheryl. What kind of adaptations did you make?
So as we sort of talked about earlier, or Ella mentioned that she kept her training, like her running and her riding, down quite a bit. And even the swimming, volume wise for swimming, we were doing probably only 2,500 meter workouts at that point. And her runs were definitely not over 10K, and rides, as we said, were not over 30K. So it was, we kept her down quite a bit to prevent injuries, as well as to keep the potential burnout away. As a lot of other young athletes get pushed to do so much volume. But at this point, Ella was done high school. So at this point, we had been working with the activities, the 3 different sports, while she was in high school. So keeping the quality high, as we talked, as Ella mentioned, and the volume a little bit lower, also because she had a ton of workload at that point. Knowing that she was sort of being able to transition in the summertime when she didn't have school, and then going into this higher volume training program, she also wasn't in school. So that was a way for her body to adapt and to be able to do that higher training volume, because she didn't also have all the other stressors in life, which tend to add up on the body. So at that point, I mean, the main thing that we did focus on was increasing volume in all the sports and just getting her body ready for the potential volume that was going to be coming from Mark. There wasn't probably anything other too specific in terms of technique. She had at that point probably quite good technique in all three disciplines, but I know she learned still a ton of new things when she went over to the National Training Center. But in terms of what we were able to kind of prep her for, what they came up with over there, it was mainly the volume focus that was the change.
That's great. And Ella, maybe
Get her ready.
transitioning the description of that, what did you find really worked well for you in Victoria with Marc Antoine, and maybe respectfully, what didn't work well, or what did you learn that you needed to continue to work on?
So honestly, like it is a very high intensity atmosphere. And I think that's what I needed at that point. Like I had been chasing the boys for so long in Tornado and like there's really good training partners. But at some point, like I just needed people my age, my level with like same goals in mind, kind of. So like I was pushed physically and mentally to points I hadn't been before in like sports. And I really think like even just the component of living on your own. And I had to learn, we didn't have a car. So I had to bike. I had to take the third day I was in Victoria, I had a bike malfunction and I had to take the bus downtown.
Oh
And then
my,
I
a lot of
forgot my,
self-management, eh?
yeah. So it was, I was completely like on my own. And I really think the coaching, like they were tough on us. Like we had to be independent. And if we made a mistake, it was our fault. And they told us and we had to learn from it. And I think that's what I needed at that point. Like it made me a lot more self-aware and really responsible. Like I couldn't be like, "Hey mom, do you have a bike tube?" Like I had to have everything with me. And just the whole concept, like you said, like completely on my own. Like I had to take the bus if I had to get somewhere or I had to bike to practice. And we had great teammates that helped us out. But yeah, it was definitely something completely new and definitely a worthwhile experience.
That's fantastic. It's really nice as a host to hear such maturity coming out of such a wonderful young lady. So that's really great. Sounds like a very, very positive transitional experience for you.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm just going to invite, so far, I think we're doing fantastic, but for our viewers that are with us, I would invite you to ask any questions at any point in time. So if you have some, just type them in and we'll try to get to them. Keep them clean, please, folks. So you transitioned, you get to the end of that first year at the National Center, and then there seems to be this question, are you going to do post-secondary school? Are you going to continue to be a sort of a full-time athlete only? What led to that next phase of deciding, okay, I'm at the National Center, I've learned a lot, but I want to continue my education, and where am I going to go and what am I going to do? Can you describe that stage?
Yeah. So kind of as I was growing up, my parents always said school comes first. And I've learned through triathlon and especially through the past few years, like I've had injuries and I've had stuff happen. And like triathlon might not always be there and school will be. And eventually I'm going to need a job. So I decided that the best choice for me to balance school, life, and triathlon all in one was to go to a school in the States for financial purposes and just to have school linked with triathlon because I think that's really important. And my advisors at South Dakota, like in academics, they work with my coach in triathlon. So I never have to worry about the battle between school and training because they work kind of together. So I think that was one of the big things for me. And I want to get my undergrad in 4 years. And that was the best way kind of to do it. So that's the decision I made.
So your mom had mentioned earlier that, in your younger years or your youth, you said, no, I'm going to either go to Mac or Guelph or Laurier. And then all of a sudden you make these transitions, you learn more about yourself, you continue to excel. What did you find? And you've mentioned that the linkage of the integrated school and athletic system. Would you say that that's something that you feel is missing, or do you feel it just takes extra energy for an athlete to have to manage it at the Canadian schools? Can you describe that for us so some people can learn from some of those? Because we've certainly seen Canadian athletes still be successful, whether they're at UBC, McMaster, or whatever institution. Liam Donnelly's at Western, and still excelling and pursuing his goals. So just describe what continued to make that adjustment for you.
So honestly, the states offer the full package, I think. Like they have such a good bond, like athletics and academics, like they just go together. Like if you're a student athlete, you're put like in a separate category. Like they prioritize your education, and it's a lot easier to handle. But I do know several athletes in Canada who have managed to still do triathlon but train, like you said, Liam Donnelly on the cross country team. Or there's a lot of swimmers who train on the swim team but also do triathlon. And I think there isn't a program in Canada like that's missing right now where you can do triathlon in school and they're together. Like the one like in at the National Performance Center, they offer great program, but it's not together with the school. So that was kind of my decision maker, I would say. And like I don't regret my decision. Like I think at the University of South Dakota, like it's a small school, which is good for me. I kind of like small environments. It has a really good business school, which kind of that's my major. So that kind of helped me decide really fast. And then the triathlon program's up and coming. So
Fantastic. And Mom, Carolyn, how did you feel about this? Because this is sort of the new beginning. It's no longer labeled what for lack of a better term, a transitional move. This is a move where your first one is potentially going to be going away for 4 years. How did you feel about it?
Mhm. Well, I knew it was inevitable. Ella's always been pretty independent and very disciplined and has never had to been pushed or told or what not to do. I mean, reminders to unload the dishwasher and all that normal teenage stuff. Um, but it was kind of that natural. I just go back to that development. She naturally just progressed realistically with her age. And so as she went through triathlon, she just kind of built on it slowly. When she went to Victoria, one point I want to just remind people is that one thing I noticed when Ella was there is that not only did she have to be fiercely independent because she was on her own, was that she was taught, I think, a little bit more of being mentally tough. And and I know she said they were tough on her from a training perspective, but Ella came back very driven with the fact that I know how to fix my bike. I know how to race plan. I have to listen. This is what my coach says. This is down to the minute. This is what I need to do. So she was very kind of the technical. So her being off for 4 years, being able to do all of that in one package, I think as a mom, it's pretty awesome. She knew what she wanted and she went after it, and she's kind of in control of her destiny. Although COVID's not the best example of that at the moment, but she from her being off, it was inevitable that she was going to fly, and but she took control of it. So that's
Yeah,
what can I
that's
do?
great. And that's a great
Yep.
segue. Ella, obviously, Coach Kyle Joplin uh, is the coach down at South Dakota. Can you describe what his philosophy is, and your beginning? You get there in the end of or middle of August or end of August of 2019, and you're feeling good, you're feeling confident, natural apprehensions, and then all of a sudden, Kyle Joplin says, "Okay, let's start training for triathlons." What was his philosophy? What was different? And give us a little bit of a understanding what adjustments you had to make.
So, coming off of the 2019 regular season, I had a bit of a rough go. So, heading into university, I it was like a clean slate for me. I was like, all right, no more flats, no more disqualifications, no more crashes. Like this, we're starting over. So, I just kind of mentally had to take a break before I got to school. And when I got there, Kyle knew about everything that had happened with me in the summer, and he cares a lot about us as individuals, and how we're doing mentally, physically, and in school. So just he really cares about his athletes, and he's very educated in swimming. So like his swim sets are hard. And I just kind of gradually, it didn't seem like too much of a difference. I had one teammate from Victoria, my best friend that I lived with. She came with me. We both decided to go to school at South Dakota. So it wasn't completely new. Like I had someone I knew, and Kyle just really pushed us all to work together and push each other and to reach new heights. Like he always wants to see us progress, but he's also smart. And if we're hurt or we need something, he takes care of that first before trying to push us. So.
What's worked well, obviously, as your mom mentioned, and we all know of this crisis management we're dealing with COVID-19. What worked really well for you, or what did you find you improved the most at, and what do you identify as still needing a lot of work or improvement?
So I think I suffered a hamstring injury in the fall, starting my season. I think I did too much running too soon, and that was a communication error from me to my coach. And I think that because of that, my run training suffered in the fall because I raced the first 3 races and I was able to run in the races, but maybe not as well as I could have if I was actually training. So I think just being smart with my body, and I've learned that. And Kyle and I have great communication now between that. Texted him last night and said I had a sore back, and he just told me to adjust a couple things. And we just kind of built that communication. So that didn't work well, but now it works really well. And that was my fault as an athlete, not communicating. But I think just the whole system kind of worked really well for me, because when I was in Victoria, I feel like I was so focused on training 24/7 that I almost stressed out for some training sessions. But now I have school to worry about. I have class until 1:45 and practice at 2. So I run to the dome, I get ready, and then I'm present in that moment, and I can just give everything I have towards a session, and I don't mentally like psych myself out. So just kind of the whole system kind of worked well, and I have really great teammates who are supportive in
Great.
and out of practice.
What do you think Kyle would like to identify as something, we are very uncertain as to what this season's going to look like. It could be an opportunity to work on strengths. It can be an opportunity to work on areas of improvement leading into September. Again, being a bit uncertain as to what will happen competitively. What have you identified with your coach that you want to work on going forward?
So I right now am focusing a lot on strength and kind of base, but also trying to keep up a bit of intensity, because you want to keep the leg turnover and strength on the bike. So for example, I'll have like 3 easy runs a week, 1 long run, and then a workout. So the other runs are just kind of base mileage and preparing my legs for that workout. And that's the workout I try to hit every week. So mentally, like after Sarasota Claremont this year, I had to take a break because one, I just didn't have a good race, and I just was blaming myself and really frustrated. And I was like, okay, I just need a break to remember why I love this. So I took like 2 weeks, and I just went for a run when I felt like it. I got my brother to bike beside me. I went on a mountain bike with my brother. I just kind of did things that reminded me of why I work so hard towards this. So I think I talked with Kyle on the phone, and we communicated, and he just said, okay, we're going to put kind of a routine in place, because that's what I was lacking. I was lacking routine. And so now I have training 6 to 7 days a week, depending on how my body's doing. And I have a gym in my basement, so I kind of have been working with that. And I bought myself a pool. So I tether myself to my, what's it called? Like gazebo. And I can swim stationary. So I kind of have tried to do the best that I can in the circumstances, and with great communication with my coach.
And just make sure you're holding technique, because an awful lot of those little pool stretch cord stationary swims that I'm seeing all over YouTube right now, the stroke and the swimming is horrific. So
Yeah,
make sure that you invite Cheryl over every once in a while to make sure that that distance per stroke is being maintained.
yeah,
Come on,
for
we're on
sure.
social distancing. Not
Well, you
allowed.
you can sit in the backyard, have a coffee, and watch the stroke.
I think it's
Okay,
Yeah.
also just good for
Let's just
like the
make a
feel.
note that Ella's only in the pool for about like it's 8 degrees, 7 degrees. So I'm not, we're very short time in the pool.
Yeah, I've done like I think it's good for sculling and like the feel of the water. Just kind of regardless, but yeah.
Mama Kubas, whatever happened to the olden days when our kids were 3 and we filled the pool with hot water?
Yeah, no, not doing it.
Okay. Um, well, again, as I mentioned, it's wonderful to hear the transitions and the growth of such a wonderful young athlete. Um, Ella, what do you think you've learned about yourself that has helped you build so much confidence in what you do?
I think that, sorry, I'm just looking at my notes over here. I think that just kind of the passion for the sport kind of runs everything. And even when it's not going well, I just remember like what I've done to get here, kind of, and what I want to do to improve. So just kind of taking whatever comes at me and making the best of it. And I've just really focused on bringing my best self because sometimes I might not be able to perform to the level of this person, but I'm giving the best I have on that day. So just kind of controlling what I can control, like my nutrition, my recovery, who I surround myself with, and just bringing my best self to every training session. And that's kind of built up my confidence because I've been organized and I know I'm controlling everything I can for the outcome pretty much.
That's fantastic to hear. I've got a couple questions here. One of these questions is from Luis Lopez. He's the coach at one of the coaches at C3 up in Caledon. And Luis asks me, or asks you, Ella, sorry, um, where does she see herself 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I get that question a lot. And 5 years from now, I would be just graduated university. And that's a really uncertain time in life. And especially with me, I've lived in Victoria, I've lived in Ontario, I've lived in the States. I don't know where I'm going to be living, but I do know that I want to see myself in high performance sport and I want to keep chasing those goals. So I'm going to try to find a balance between work and life in triathlon at that point and just keep working my hardest.
Fantastic. Um, Taking this again your wonderful development, have you ever given some thought to, and you've obviously made this change to take a path of what you feel very strongly and passionately about as an integrated model in the US? Have you ever thought about what you think the Ontario and Canadian triathlon system needs to help you over the next 3 or 4 years? What do you think you'd like to see the Canadian and provincial system work on or enhance or develop? And I
Well,
ask
I
that,
mean,
sorry, Ella, I ask it to everybody, so I'd like to hear from all of you.
okay, yeah. Well, I think to start, it doesn't really necessarily affect me anymore because I'm a U23, but I really think that having a Canadian Junior series would have been a great development for me because I was thrown into cam tries when I was 16 and racing people who are 30 years old. And that's really good. I think that's really good just to kind of fight and have to learn how to not be racing at the front. But I think it would also be important to incorporate a junior race and
Mhm.
having just juniors racing each other because there's so much growth and development that goes on between the ages of 16 and 30.
Mhm.
And I just think for keeping young girls in sport, it's really important to kind of give them an ability to race at the front, but also to get kind of wrecked. Not like that, but like get beat by some pretty good competition. So I think it's really good to have a balance. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Mhm.
We'll go over to
Well,
you, Cheryl.
I've talked to Carolyn and Ella about this just Specific to Ella is a little bit tricky at this point, knowing that she's planning to stay in the States. But in terms of the Canadian system, I work with a university team. So I've seen the way I work with a swim team. So I've seen different athletes come in and be part of our swim team. Ella kind of touched on this as well, but it would be awesome for our Canadian system to have the opportunity to have a triathlon team at that level. I think that's the biggest hurdle right now for triathletes going to university. There is no system. Most people are not going to be strong enough. Most of the triathletes, there's the odd ones that are going to be strong enough, but to go on a team, a swim team, a cross country team, track team, those kinds of things, to be strong, to make the team and also be strong in the other two disciplines. There are the few, and I've seen them, I've coached them on the swim team, but they struggle with the elite swimmers, and they struggle to maintain the workouts that are mandatory for one sport versus the three sports. So that's my biggest observation working with university, is that there's no triathlon cohesive plan at university level in Canada. And that's why it so looks so inviting for someone like Ella to go to another location where they have that, where the team is working with the school. So like the National Training Center is all about triathlon, but it didn't incorporate how it worked with the school, from what I understand from Ella. So there's no real place for those athletes. There's people trying to do one team. You've mentioned Liam. I saw him in Guelph when he's in Western, and he's coming back and forth to train with different people so he can get exposure to different good coaches. And it's very hard to sustain, I think, for those athletes. There's some that can do it, but I don't know that it's sustainable for many.
I see you, Carolyn, nodding. Would you obviously agree? You have anything to expand on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Sheryl. It's just kind of a handful of.
Oh, Carolyn, we lost your mom, Ella.
Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
we lost you.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll ask you to
Am I
start
back
from
now?
You're back now.
Okay,
We just
I'll
need
start
you
again.
to start from the beginning.
Sorry, that I agree with Sheryl completely. There's probably only a handful of athletes that can handle. I mean, Liam Donnelly, we know him. He's a super strong student, super strong athlete. Being able to manage, I give him all the kudos in the world to be able to manage that, his skill, that schedule that he has going. It's just phenomenal. It's just not, I'm just not sure if, there's the majority can handle that. And the one big thing that Ellis touched on is the team and being driven by a team, and the whole team is, it's team practice. It's like the university team Sheryl coaches, it's a team. Like they all show up and they know they're part of the swim team or track team or whatever. And if Canada or Ontario, or I don't know how from a perspective they can do that, but that would be something that would definitely help out. It would attract a lot of both female and male athletes into the sport for sure.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. Sorry, Sheryl?
Yeah.
Oh, I was saying from all over the world. So, as not just Ontario or Canadian athletes, but if there's a program that would cater to the needs of triathletes at that level, then I think you'd capture individuals from everywhere.
Yeah. And financial.
Like COVID.
Yeah, and financial. I mean, being able to, dole out even whatever it was, $2,000 of scholarship for triathlon, whatever it is. If you compare that up with an academic scholarship, that makes a lot of sense for someone to stay and have that cohesive teamwork, I guess.
Yeah, my production team has just told me that we have another question. Three questions. So great. Come a little closer. Say hello. No, Robin doesn't want to say hello. Just so you know, Ella, Robin is 14, and Robin goes. What do you go in your 400 free now?
Long course or short course?
Short course.
440.
440 short course.
No, long course.
Oh,
Sorry, long course.
That's the same time as me.
440 long course. So you better watch out.
Oh, I better watch out.
Yeah.
That's speedy.
Yeah, and
14?
she's cruising 410s on light runs while we keep her in shape. Yeah, so you better You better remember that as
Who's gonna
much
be
as
next on this thing?
well, you're working hard, but I always tell athletes every once in a while you do have to check over your shoulder a little bit.
Oh, you do, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking.
All right. Well, Robin, part of the production team. What's our question for Ella?
Okay, well, there's three.
Nice and loud, please.
The first one.
Okay, there's three questions. The first one is from Barry Shepley. What does Ontario need to do to help her career?
What does Ontario need to do to help my career? Well, the tricky thing is I'm an NCAA, so they can't do anything financially for me, but what they could do is offer more group training opportunities, like training camps and stuff, I guess. I did that as a youth a lot, and I think it's really important, and mostly for young athletes kind of up and coming. Like I looked forward to those for weeks and I loved them, and that just kind of motivated me kind of through the winter when I was training on my own or things were tough. Other than that, like kind of maybe offering more races, because they have like the youth cup, and I know they have the U23 cup races, but there's not very many of them, and they're kind of at inconvenient times for NCAA athletes because I miss provincials every year because of kind of I have to be at school
You have to be at school.
August 26th.
Yeah, I was going to say usually either the middle of August or end of August. So it's food for thought. That's great. And the next question, Robin.
Okay, our next question is from Sarah Rose Sullivan. How did you choose South Dakota over other NCAA schools? What was special about their tri program?
So South Dakota for me, like I said, it's a really small school, so that was a big one for me, and the business school, but also just the tri team. Like they play second in NCAA's so 2018, before I got there, and they had a really small group, so I thought that was special that they were able to do that, and there was only 5 people on the team. So I just thought it was a good one, and it was not as expensive as some of the other schools like ASU or USF, a new program. So that was just kind of the reason I decided to go there.
That's great. We have another question from Luis Lopez, C3 coach. He asks, what advice does Ella have for younger girls getting into the sport of triathlon?
That's a good one. I could talk for so long about that. But I would say younger girls, you just have fun with it. Like if you want to play soccer, you want to do basketball or do other sports, like get a mix, because you don't want to limit yourself to one pathway or have one idea in mind. You want to just keep your options open and have fun with it. For coaches, the one thing I have to say is don't push your athletes too early. There's so much proof of female athletes burning out, and at the age of 19, they don't even love it anymore. And it's just so much mentally to take. And you go girls, do what you love, and coaches don't push them when they're not ready.
All right. One more question, Robin?
Yes, this one is from David Hopton. For young athletes wanting to get into the NCAA for triathlon, what do you think is the best way to get noticed by schools? Should they do swim or run time trials, chasing ITU results? Do they look at local results?
There's one
Good.
more question after that too.
Good question, David. David asked questions last week as well. He's the coach at with LPC as well as with the Koalas and Hammerheads up in Hamilton. So we'll turn that one over to you as well, Ella.
Yeah, so I do know David, and I know several of his athletes, and I talk to Ava Snyder and Aaliyah on a pretty much daily basis, and they've asked me questions, and I really think that this situation doesn't help because you can't really race, but my number one tip would be race in Florida, race in Claremont, Sarasota. There's so many scouts there. That's how I got scouted, and I think that's just a good opportunity to kind of show yourself against the US girls. And along with that, yes, emailing coaches and checking up with coaches, like not just one email, but several emails, send videos, send pictures, send results. you basically have to show yourself off. And it can be hard in this situation, but I think they do look at times from other races. Like if you ran really fast at the Toronto Triathlon Festival, like include that in your PB off the bike, like this time. And also contacting girls on the team is really important too, because coaches, they can't tell you to contact, like they can't tell me to contact somebody, but if I want to help build my team up as like one of the leaders on my team, I want to go and basically recruit from me, like kind of tell people about my experiences. So I would suggest contacting girls on teams, contacting coaches, contacting the academic facilities, just kind of giving yourself the most exposures you can.
Thank you. And one last question, Robin?
I think so. Okay, this one's focusing more on training during COVID-19. So it's from Frank Sorbera. How did the very first tethered swim feel after the break from swimming? Did stretch cords help at all? He is nervous. I might need a life jacket the first time back in the pool after a long layoff. LOL.
Honestly, it didn't feel that bad. My lats were a little sore, but I definitely would recommend before you get in the water, stretch cords for like 20 minutes for the first time, because yes, we're going to be sore, but in strength workouts, I try to simulate the motion with my bands and just other upper body strength. But yes, it's definitely hard and it's an adjustment, but just kind of remember everyone's kind of in the same boat right now. So just kind of do the little things you can to control.
All right.
Of Coach Frank Sorbera swimming, and you'll be okay, Frank.
Yes.
Yeah, I would not
great.
recommend a life jacket.
No.
Maybe a noodle.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a comment.
Oh, we have a comment. What's the comment,
Okay,
Robin?
so Dominika Jamnicki would like to thank Ella for her insight.
Oh, very nice. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Domi.
And we'll be mentioning a very special announcement about Domi at the end of our broadcast. So I have one last surprise that I didn't tell any of you about. So
Okay.
we are going to find out a little bit more about Ella Kubas in a little lightning round of questions that none of you have heard before. So I want you to tell me the first thing that pops into your head, and it's for all three of you, okay? We're going to find out how well she knows herself and how well the two of you know Ella, all right? So, for all three of you, to Ella, who's your favorite sports hero?
The first thing that came to my mind was Gwen Jorgensen, but she did quit triathlon, so I don't know. I look up to Richard Murray kind of because he's a fighter and he wasn't really born as a swimmer and he just kind of fights. So
Very
I
good.
think that's pretty cool.
Favorite song before you compete?
I would say like Good Life, but I forget who sings it. One Republic, I think.
One Republic.
It just
Okay.
kind of hypes me up, like
You like that one?
makes me happy. Yeah.
All right. And because you had such a vast sport background, if not triathlon, what sport would you do?
Rowing or volleyball?
All right. Favorite food the night before competition?
Pizza.
All right, Mom knows. So far, where's your favorite place to compete?
I'd say Sarasota.
All right. Obviously, you haven't been to Mallorca yet.
No. I wish.
All right. Now, here's a good one. You got to make a choice. Chocolate or ice cream?
Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Except for I'm kind of lactose intolerant, so
Oh.
probably not the best choice, but
You'd handle it, would you?
yeah.
Favorite brand of swimsuit?
Jolene.
Oh, Jolene.
Oh my God, you're killing me. My daughter's dancing over here because all the swimmers want Jolins. We're all going to go bankrupt with these Jolins.
It's the only thing there is.
Yeah. Okay, bike. Are you ready? Mechanical or Di2?
Mechanical.
One piece of running equipment you can't do without.
my watch.
Okay. And finally, your favorite discipline in the triathlon.
I'd say running.
Okay. Great. Well, I can't thank you enough, ladies and Ella. It's been a fantastic opportunity for myself to learn, and I hope for our viewers that have had a chance to come in live to learn a little bit more about you, Ella, and your development, your current programming, and what makes you tick and a force to be reckoned with in the future. And I hope that more subscribers tune in once we've recorded and posted this video. So once again, ladies, stay on the line, please. I'd like to talk to you afterwards. But thank you, viewers. Thank you for signing in to Fit Live, forging innovation together. It's been fantastic. Sorry?
Next week's announcement.
I'm getting to that, Robin. See, you know, when you have a young production team and they want to tell the volunteer host how to do their job. And our special announcement for next week, on Wednesday at 4 p.m., we have Dominika Jamnicki coming on with her coaches
Awesome.
Kyle Boersma and Craig Taylor. So that'll be very exciting. So all viewers, I hope you tune in next week at 4 o'clock, and we'll see you all there. Again, ladies, stay on the line, but thank you so much. It's
Thank
been
you.
wonderful. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much,
Thanks, John.
guys. Are we still live?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, we're still live, folks.
Just 5 more seconds.
Okay.
5 more seconds. 4,
No.
3.
Don't
He has to
count
walk
down.
over there. Hey,
You know what he's
Dog.
trying to do? I can tell you. Oh, look at who's that little doggy?
That's Izzy. Yeah. She's my favorite. I mean, like, my favorite dog.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
used to it.
That's nice taking a back seat to the